this whole thing about waiting 2-3 games is a win-win for the board. It's a win-win for these owners. And I'm thinking, how? It's a win-win? What do you mean? And he said, well, if we wait 2 to 3 games, right? If we beat Dortmund, oh, well, great. The whole thing looks nice again, doesn't it? It means we just stick. But if we get knocked out, who's to say we're going to sack Graham Potter? We've got nothing left to fight for. We might as well keep him until the end of the season now, don't we? And he's like, this is their plan. And that got me thinking. I'm like, holy shit.
Waiting, guys. Sitting and waiting for the decision to be made. We all know the big decision we're talking about. Graham Potter, ladies and gentlemen. When is this man going to be sacked? Not a matter of if. By now, it's a matter of when. If it's a matter of if for you, you have been living under a rock or just been completely oblivious to what's been going on at this club. But yeah, it's time for the man to go. Time for the man to go. We're waiting for that lovely club statement we all love to see, either good news or bad news. But yeah, we're waiting for it, guys. And the truth is, if any manager of any club, no matter how big or small the club, even a West Brom or Nottingham Forest or Derby County, if you have a coach that constantly, well, that's in charge of a team that gives poor results for a constant time in a run, then they're bound to be sacked, no matter who it is. It's the same thing. You lose, you lose, you lose. You win, you lose, you lose, you lose, you draw, you lose, you lose, you lose. At some point, it's like, yo, okay, come on. Can we at least do something about this? And at the same time, that's different for mid-table teams or guys that constantly fight relegation. We are a top 4 team easily. We should be, especially given the amount of investment that has gone into the squad during the 2 transfer windows. So it's a bit of an embarrassment and a shame, really, for us to be where we are right now. But yeah, things have gone south for Graham Potter, to be honest. I mean, listen, he's had a lot of injuries or whatever, but none of this is an excuse anymore. This guy's run out of excuses. He's run out of things to say in the post-match conferences, hearing things about comparing his process, so to speak, to Arteta's process.
What process?
And I mentioned in the other video that the owners are looking at Arsenal and thinking that it's a similar thing. Trust me, it's not a similar thing. With respect to Arsenal, we are not Arsenal. It's been 19 years since these guys won a Premier League title, and now they have a prospect or possibility of winning it now. They haven't even won it yet. So, I mean, if you told me that, Joe, it's going to be 19 years and then you're going to come and romp the league like Arsenal are romping now, I still wouldn't accept that. It doesn't make sense to me, honestly, guys. For us to be compared to Arsenal, out of this world. The fact that Potter's coming out and comparing himself to Klopp and Arteta, and talking about the fact that he watched the Amazon documentary All or Nothing, dude. What the hell are you saying? What are you actually saying? You coming out and telling us you watched a documentary about someone building a team or something, that means nothing to me in a post-match conference. The result is poor. The results have been poor for the longest time, and you coming with a bunch of excuses about someone else. You clearly have nothing to say. He's drowning. Every post-match conference is getting worse. This guy's talking about, if I have to hear that stupid quote again, talking about the boys gave everything. Oh my gosh. Guys, that's the thing. That's the problem now. It's becoming a joke. Everything's a joke at this point. We are a living meme. So these owners honestly need to sack up and pull the trigger, because it's just getting worse and worse every game, guys. And it's just funny because other channels like Chelsea Fan TV, for example, were talking about the fact, and sometimes he still mentions it, Lewis, that the players are mostly to blame. Now he's shifted more of the blame to Potter, of course, but he still maintains the fact that the players are to blame. It is true that Tuchel complained about these players, but the thing is, no matter how good the players are in a team, if you have a bad coach leading them, you're not going to get any results, which is what is happening now. Todd Boehly has invested in this club tremendously. Him and Behad Iqbali, they've invested in this club tremendously, buying in, bringing in so much talent in João Felix, Kylo Woodrick, Enzo Fernandez. Barry Ashile has been doing relatively well despite the team being terrible, despite the fact that he doesn't pick him for the lineup, which I'm going to get to just now. Zakaria hasn't really put a foot wrong. So all of these choices, these just seem like managerial issues. like, how does a whole team look bad as a collective? That's obviously when you look at the manager. You can buy as many stars as you want, but right now we're just looking like a team of individuals. That's what's happening. I remember Paul Merson, as much as I don't really rate him, he spoke about how in the Southampton game we look like a team of individuals. It's just like what each person can do individually. You know, Noni Madueke, all of these guys. Sterling was playing by himself, and he looked like the brightest player in that attack. Everything's just looking bad. And it's clearly the fact that Potter doesn't know what he's doing. He gets these press conferences, he doesn't know what he's saying. He has no excuses, he's running out of excuses. So things are just going from bad to worse. And, like, even if you go in depth, because this is just what we see from outside, but, Yunus Talks Football had a very interesting video about our match against Newcastle where we lost 1-0 and we looked really flat. That was like the beginning of the end for me, that game. And he mentioned how he went to a practice session and saw what was going down there. And I'll put up, a short clip of, what he described went on.
You can't identify what this Chelsea team are actually trying to do. And my second point is an observation that I saw when I went to watch training, and it's an observation that I've seen in previous matches, and that only clarified it to me when I saw it happen today again, which is Graham Potter has about as much inspiration as a goldfish. With all due respect, I see nothing from the touchline, and I see nothing from Potter. These players could be doing wrong, and sometimes they might not even know they're doing wrong, and no one will say a thing. No one will say a thing. I'll tell you guys what I saw at training, right? Two things. Was, one, Graham Potter was in the distance. He leaves his staff to do the training session, which I understand. Managers do that, right? But during the session, during a drill, during an exercise, the manager's the one that's watching and intervenes if something goes wrong. Or if something needs to be pointed out, stop. This, that, that player. What about this? How about you do this? How about you move there? How about you try that? How about you pass there? How about you shoot there? Something. There was nothing. My observation from training is exactly what we see during the match. There is nothing from Graham Potter. Not a word. When you look at Eddie Howe, constantly, this, go there. You see a bit of anger when it has to be, and you see praise and encouragement when it has to be done. You see nothing from Potter. Nothing. Which brings me on to another point that I saw in training, which convinced me that we weren't going to score today. We just weren't. You can see in the goal, 2 little goals in each corner. The aim is to try and place the ball in those 2 little goals, because therefore you're going for the bottom corner, basically. Yeah, the players are instructed when the ball comes over, or however you shoot, make sure you aim for the bottom corner. These guys, I can't tell you the amount of times that shots were fluffed, right? Painful. When a shot goes absolutely left, right, almost like you'd think it's been hit out for a 6 and we're playing cricket, nothing is said. No one bats an eye. There's no one going, "Oi, come on, what was that? No, better." There's nothing. It's silence. It's accepted. The culture at Chelsea right now is your failures are accepted and the bare minimum is praised. And that is exactly what we saw today on the pitch.
And after hearing that, it was just very worrying to see how things are dealt with on the training ground. Training's supposed to be your most intense session. That's where you practice for these games. And this guy is barely even present at training sessions, or when he is, he's so soft and he doesn't discipline and he doesn't coach, he doesn't give instruction. And people can call it a coaching style, but it just doesn't make sense for me that your coaching style is so hands-off. I understand having a hands-on approach versus, being slightly relaxed, but at some point you need to give instruction. You need to have an idea, an identity, a way you want your team to play and try and impose that. That's what being a coach is. And for some it takes longer than others, but you can't just do nothing and leave things to your coaching staff, for example, and have these tame training sessions. Primary school and high school training sessions were more intense than what was described here, guys. It was just pathetic. And this is what he's doing with world-class players. They must be looking at this guy who are you? You know what I mean? Enzo Fernandez coming from Benfica, relatively top team in the Portuguese league, and Argentina, who just won a World Cup, coming to play with Graham Potter. Is this a joke? This guy's not serious, honestly. And at the end of the day, can you even expect him to step down? Of course not. This guy's earning 12 million a year for 5 years. Honestly, why would you walk away from that kind of money compared to Brighton, where he was earning about 2 million a year, almost 2 million a year? So of course he's not going to step down. I'm not going to expect that from him personally. But the big news here is the fact that he is apparently, because at first Matt Law said that he was basically going to be given about 2 more games, or 3 games including the Tottenham one, which we lost, to essentially prove himself. That's the growing feeling, but that seemed like an opinion from Matt Law, so I didn't know if I should hold on to that. But then Fabrizio came out today and mentioned that it is basically 2 or 3 more games until they decide what they want to do and change their solution, which I'm very relieved about, but at the same time it's kind of stupid, because why would you wait 2 more games? We're going to wait until Leeds, which we might lose, and then Dortmund, which we'll definitely lose. And Dortmund is our one chance of actually progressing further in the Champions League to the quarterfinals, then the semis and the finals. Those are like what? Essentially 3 more games, obviously 2 legs in a semi. But it's a short time to actually win the Champions League and potentially play European football the next season, which I think we have a better chance of, obviously, than making top 4. So why would you wait for us to miss out on that and then decide, no, it's time to sack Potter? That makes no sense. Like, I question the thought process of these guys that own billion-dollar corporations. Like, you make so much money. How is this your thought process? Surely you must be smart to a degree to make this much money, and this is what you're doing. Like, anyone can see that this is just a bad idea. You should fire him now. He should have been fired after the Southampton game. He should have been fired before that, personally. And to wait for things to get worse, what are we salvaging at this point? We get an interim in, or we're lucky enough to get like a world-class manager in. What, is it just preventing us from going to relegation? Like, how are we going to get to top 4 at this point? I guess it's fighting for a Conference League place, but like, seriously, who wants that? But I guess European football is European football, and it's all about the profits gained from it. Like, people forget how important it is to actually get into European football in terms of profits and balancing your books as a whole thing. Like, the fact that we're able to get so many players in this season was also due to the fact that we had won the Champions League previously, so that's a massive factor. And why Arsenal kind of struggled to get in certain players. They got essentially good players, no doubt, like players like Trossard, etc., but most of them not their first choice, because they haven't played Champions League for ages, and it shows. So for me now, it's all down to the owners. We're all just looking at the owners and questioning their decisions at this point in time. If they don't do anything, we start to look at them funny, because now we all know it's Potter. We all know Potter's a problem that's clear as day. Now it's down to the owners to see what they're going to do about it, and if they don't, that's when it's like, you guys are very questionable, because no one was complaining when they were spending. We all agree that they're quite good on a business aspect of things, and they're doing a lot of things behind the scenes for this club, the women's football team, the youth. We have exciting prospects, guys, if we're honest. Like, everything's set in motion, everything's perfect. We're just waiting for that coach to lead us. And Potter's in the way of all that progress. He is an enemy of progress. That's the perfect way to put it. He's an EOP, straight up. So honestly, like, we just need a world-class coach to lead this team. We have gems in this team. We have gems in the youth. We can just go in the right direction, and it's down to the owners to do what they need to do. So it's interesting what Matt Law said about how the senior players are falling out with Graham Potter, and that's basically, it reminds me of Lampard's tenure when he was running the club and he had a falling out with a lot of the senior players there. A couple of them, like, I think one of them was Kovacic, and Alonso is definitely a big one. I remember it was the one game against, was it, I can't remember, was it Brentford or something? I can't remember. We lost like 5-2, no, West Brom, it was a bad game. Alonso deserved the mouthful because he wasn't doing some stuff, but it's still not a good idea to completely neglect your senior players. As much as he focused on the youth, which is what a lot of fans wanted, you can't completely neglect senior players. They have a massive say in what goes on at the club. Thiago Silva has his doubts. We saw that tweet from his wife. We saw that tweet from him when he was training at home, wondering why training was postponed or cancelled. Also, like, let's talk about the fact that we had 3 days off as a team. For I don't know what reason. Potter is just, everything he says and does, all his actions and his words just scream soft. Soft, Mr. Vanilla. Like, this guy irritates me. Like, it's one thing to be soft and have a timid approach to things, but it's like, dude, seriously? 3 days off for that performance against Tottenham? What was the point? This guy's run out of things to do. He doesn't even know what to do in training sessions anymore. He's trying to save himself. Granted, we have a large squad, and sure, you struggle with that. It's up to you to get the players on board. You're getting paid 12 million a year. This is your job. This is why you're getting paid this much, to to solve big problems like this. Cool, you have 30 plus members in your squad, deal with it. You have to pick an 11 to start and however many saw on the bench, deal with it. You have 5 substitutions, work with them. Don't make players feel isolated now, because players like Chalobah, Kovacic, and can't remember who, Kukurea, I think, plus a few more probably. I think Chukwuemeka as well. Those guys that were left out of the squad completely for that game. They weren't even substitutes, guys. How do you explain that? And then he benches Thiago Silva. He benches Buddy Ashil, who had a great partnership with Thiago Silva, and plays Koulibaly for what? One of the most impetuous defenders I've seen in the Prem. Like, this guy tackles and then thinks, like, you know what I mean? All his decisions are questionable. Playing Loftus-Cheek instead of Kovacic, instead of either Kovacic or Zakaria, who could provide good cover for Enzo Fernandez. Like, his decisions are so questionable, and he keeps coming up with excuses like, no, it's a big squad. That issue is yours to deal with. You're getting, this job is way above your pay grade, clearly, if you cannot deal with a certain number of players in your squad. At first, he talks about how nice it is to have, new faces in the squad, and he appreciates the transfer window or whatever. But now he complains about having to work with such a large squad. Tough. This is what happens when you deal with a large club. This is big club problems. Welcome to the big leagues. Like, honestly, it just doesn't make sense for me how he's complaining about this, and then going and talking about Amazon Prime documentaries on Arsenal and how there's a process and what. This guy's run out of excuses. He's run out of things to say. His post-match conferences are getting worse. He's recycling his statements. I guess it doesn't make sense. Now, they pulled the trigger late, and we have this terrible job for the next manager that comes in. Just a whole bunch of mess for him to clean up. We can't sit here and not do anything. A lot of people are saying there's no point in firing him now because we're not going to get a top-class manager, this late in the season. And, we may as well wait until summer. I'm like, that's ridiculous. What problem do you know has gotten better by doing nothing about it? You can't sit there and do nothing about it. This is not one of those issues that solve themselves. This is a problem that needs to be addressed now. It's a bleeding wound that needs to be stopped. Like, you need to solve it because it's going to get infected, and that's what's happening. Like, it's before, for example, our defense was relatively decent. Now we're starting to concede goals. You know what I mean? Before, the attack was a problem, and essentially the midfield, that goes hand in hand. Now it's become a thing of like our defense is starting to wobble now. Before, we had quite a decent defensive record, actually, if you actually look at the statistics. But now it's starting to leak to the defense, and it's going to be the whole team. Senior players are feeling it, obviously, like I mentioned with the senior players. Obviously, the younger players are going to start to feel it now as well. So it's becoming an issue. It's just a matter of when. Apparently, I saw recently, actually, I don't know if I can put it up, but Mudrik posted some cryptive. This fly is bugging me. Get it? Fly bugging. Some cryptive post about talent not being enough, wearing that hoodie, also that tattoo he has, talent not being enough. But then the way he said in his caption, if you know what I mean. So I think certain things are going on that we just not aware of. Like, journalists are lying to us about things going well on the ground. Maybe not the journalists, but definitely reports from Potter and Burley saying like things are going well on the ground, the training mood is good, we're happy. They're showing us pictures at Cobham of players smiling and laughing. I'm like, this is complete lies. You cannot tell me things are going well with the coach. Everyone has a decent relationship with the coach, and these are the results they're putting out. Like, the team looks lost. Everyone looks completely confused whenever we go out to play, and it's just getting worse. Like, it's clear as day. Like, the fact that we have these players, even rival fans are talking to me like, you guys are wasting such talented players. Like, this is what you're doing with it. Potter needs to go. You know what I mean? These are rival fans. They're not even there, seeing the day to day, and this is what they're saying. Plus, the other problem is that everyone around us is doing better. United is progressing now. They just won a trophy. Liverpool is picking up. There's no excuse anymore. They're leaving us in the dust. Arsenal, they're doing as well as they're doing. City. Newcastle's picking up. Like, Spurs is starting to pick up now. Like, you know what I mean? Everyone's leaving us in the dust, and now we're gonna stick with this guy and support the process. I hate that term. We are not Arsenal for the 100th time, guys. I'm just gonna leave a little video about from Eunice Talks Football about the state we're in now and why it is imperative for us to fire Graham Potter sooner.
What is it that the owners are holding on to? Why are we waiting? What are we waiting for? Because let's put it into perspective here. We're on this road. Does anyone actually believe it's going to get better? It's done. When players have doubt, when players feel it, you're finished. That's what they call you're losing the dressing room, mate. Let me put this into perspective. If they are actually looking at the Leeds game and the Dortmund game as games where they're going to analyse Potter for the last time and wait for us to get eliminated from the Champions League to then make the decision, they are insane. If we were to get through to the quarterfinals, even with Graham Potter, right? Say we beat Dortmund. Okay. Does anyone actually believe we're going to win the Champions League? We're in a situation right now where Europe is far, 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 far beyond our reach. We don't even think about getting a Conference League place at this rate. Don't even think about getting top half of the table at this rate. We're talking about relegation now, and we're not even laughing anymore. We are in relegation form. The last 6 games in the Premier League, we are 19th. Just to put it into perspective, we keep this up, we've still got to play the rest of the Big 6. We keep this up, we've still got to play hard games at home.
Let me know what you guys think in the comments. It's nice being interactive with people and seeing what the masters are saying. But until then, Blue Bloods Football, signing out.